News with Colin in London.
Jeremy, thanks very much indeed. We're going to take a bite, in fact, for the second time out of the newspapers in the company of John Gaunt, who's got a different selection for us now. John, good morning again.
Good morning, Colin.
And you start with the Times.
Yeah, start with the front page of the Times. Terror cells tracked as Britain remembers 7/7. I must admit, I woke up this morning and only realised that it was the 5th anniversary. And because I was broadcasting that day on BBC London, and I think I was the first person to interview somebody who'd actually come out of one of the tube carriages because he was on his way to work at BBC London, and that the memory sticks with me. And as with all great radio and great TV, it's often through other people's tragedy. So it's hit me this morning. It's 5 years on, and there's a whole load of articles in lots of different papers. There's actually, get your diary out, a good piece by Yasmin Alibaya-Brown in The Independent, which I actually quite enjoyed.
You're a great fan of
reading
hers,
today.
John, aren't you?
Oh, she's #1 fan. But Andy Heyman's also talking about it today in the Times, and you've got to buy the Times today to read what Andy Heyman has to say. He was the man who was in charge in 7/7. He also talks about the fact that we're still tracking terror cells, and they reckon people are more radicalised than ever. And he makes the point, which is something I've been making for ages, which, you know, spending £53 million on buying new youth centres and snooker tables isn't going to stop these kids getting radicalised.
Prevent strategy.
It's a nonsense. And he makes that point in there. He also, as well, Yasmin Alibaya-Brown in The Independent talks about tolerance, and some other people do. And talk about Ken Livingstone. You know, Ken Livingstone said, you seek to divide us. I always remember that. It was the day after the Singapore announcement for the Olympics. And he said, you won't divide us. And at the time I thought, yeah, I could see the emotion in it. But actually, as the years pass by, and they make this point in some of the columns today in the newspapers, actually, on this one, Ken Livingstone is right. Look how tolerant we've been as a society. There hasn't been a rising tide of Islamophobia, despite what some people on the left would like to put forward. We have been extremely tolerant. We've got this problem in Birmingham with the cameras at the moment. And also, you know, the other big story around today is all about the have we been complicit in torture? And Cameron is right to say we need an investigation. Where I'm a little bit worried is we're going to pay compensation to people before that inquiry.
Yeah, he's changed the terms of that when he's made it a criminal
and that is worrying. But I think the thing we've got to remember, 5 years on after 7/7, is what a brilliant country this is. Black and white, every sort of religion, tolerant. There hasn't been the backlash that everyone predicted there would be. And I think that's something to the credit of the British
You mentioned
people.
cameras.
Yeah.
In the Telegraph cameras.
Oh, this is brilliant.
Catching some images which...
Yeah,
tough to handle.
Well, these are people who are just fed up of having no action from the police, I guess. And they say, we're no curtain twitchers, we mean business. Tired of drug dealers blighting the streets, a group of OAPs have set up a high-tech neighbourhood watch. They've got night vision goggles and videos, and they've basically been taking photos of the yobbos and then passing them on to the police. Now, of course, guess what's happened? Suddenly everyone's using the V word, you know, as if it's the C word or the F word, and they're having to go at them because saying, are they vigilantes? These people aren't vigilantes. These people are a community getting together to try and make their area in Leicestershire better, and Leicestershire police, instead of criticising them, should be commending them, and other communities should do the same. They're not taking the law into their own hands. They're saying, here's the evidence of some disruptive or antisocial behaviour.
I tell you what, my life must have been increasingly spent away from the real world, because I'm truly shocked by this picture of an OAP being kicked by...
She's been kicked in the back as she walks along by youth, and another one's taken... That looks like he's taken a photo of it on his mobile phone. Then there's another picture of them drug dealing in the street as well.
Yeah, but we know drug dealing goes on, but kicking OAPs...
Kicking an OAP,
and so to the Mail.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's trying to get their angle on this this killer who's still on the loose in Northumbria. And this is David Wilson, who you use a lot on Sky, of course, Professor of Criminology at Birmingham City University. He's gone through a step-by-step sort of guide to the twisted mind of this maniac. But what I find frightening in this, he says, as a criminologist, I receive missives like this all the time from prisoners. He's talking about the letter, the self-pitying, I love my kids, I love, you know, and all this, and the self-justification. But it is a worry that there's a lot of people in prison with similar sort of thoughts to this man who's on the run at the moment.
Yeah, the letters... It's puerile in parts, isn't it? It's the stuff of the playground very often. I think we're going to talk about the Express finally, aren't we?
Oh, we're going to do the Express finally? OK, or do you want to do the police awards?
The pensions, I think I've been told.
The pensions, yeah, OK. Gravy train beckons for Brown, basically. That was the story that I was focusing on there. Gordon Brown now is off to university. He could take a post at Edinburgh University, or if we're lucky, he could go to Harvard and Yale. But you can't go much further. I'll tell you where he should be. He's in the Houses of Parliament, and he should be explaining himself. I understand, you know, obviously he wants to take a back seat whilst the new boys are settling in, but actually he's largely responsible for the financial mess we're in. Darling's had the good grace to actually turn up with his black eyebrows and grey hair. Why can't Gordon Brown? I mean, where is Wally? That's what we need to know. You know, my kid's favourite book. Where is Wally?
Candid views, coming from a certain position, as always, but interesting. John,
Thank you
thanks
very
much
much
indeed. On our website, skynews.com. More on that story throughout the day, of course, but Charlotte's got the rest of the day's news now. Charlotte.
Thanks, Colin. Well, 2 British climbers have died in the French Alps after falling over 1,000 feet. The 38-year-old man and 20-year-old woman fell whilst... Well, we seem to have lost the link there with Kay Burley We seem to have lost the link there. We seem to have lost the link, I'm afraid, with Kay Burley in Rothbury. We'll try to go back to that as soon as we can. It was, of course, about the ongoing search for Raoul Moat, the gunman who is on the large at the moment. A huge police presence there at the moment. But meanwhile, in other news, British troops will be withdrawn from the volatile Sangin area of Helmand this autumn. The district has seen British forces involved in some of the fiercest fighting in Afghanistan, with nearly a third of UK deaths occurring there. American troops will now take over operations, as Alistair Bunkle reports.
If success is going to come...
Some breaking news for you, and another Lord has decided to step down this morning. It's Lord Foster of Thames Bank, and he's the 5th peer to quit in order to retain his non-domiciled tax status. Now, this is all to do with legislation that was introduced at the end of the last Parliament, and members have until midnight tonight to opt out of the House of Lords. So far, 4 Lords have stepped down yesterday, and the latest we're hearing that is another Lord, Lord Foster. He is, of course, Norman Foster, the internationally renowned architect. He is the latest to announce that he has decided to step down from the House of Lords. Now, the Hollywood actress Lindsay Lohan has been sentenced to 90 days in jail. The 24-year-old broke down in tears as she was sentenced at the Beverly Hills courthouse. Jane Dougal has more.
Stunned, Lindsay Lohan wept.
Business news time now. Here's Anna.
Charlotte, thank you. Good morning to you.
Coming up next on Sky News, the gunman's girl. We'll hear from Raoul Moat's ex. And we'll also be back in Rothbury as the manhunt continues.